Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Vicar General Cardinal Kelly Patrick. It is already February 10th, 2019. Somebody asked me a question today that I feel like is worth answering. I think I may have answered this in various ways in testimonial rooms, written format, and maybe years ago when I was still kind of green and not really good at public speaking. I'm still not great at public speaking, but I think that it was just different then. We'll just leave it at that. So pretty much I have the same story. The question, the direct question, I'll just go back to it. Sister Kelly, would you tell us how you became convinced about Lord Rael? Okay, so anybody that knows me knows that I'm not really a simple person. I can't give just a simple answer unless I'm short on time and I'm working on something, and then I'll give you a really short answer. But what convinced me? I'll try to tell a little story about how I began this search, and then I'll tell you when the convincing point occurred. Okay. Now, for me, when I was convinced of Lord Rael being the returned Messiah, this has been now over 5 years ago, approximately. And what happened was I had some, little time on my hands, and I was online. I was searching several different Templar groups for some reason. I think it's because I was looking at my ancestry. And in my ancestry, I had come across some bloodlines that were with Sir Orkney and other, important Templars, the protectors of the bloodline, and the Sinclair bloodline and all that. And so I became fascinated when I grew to understand that not only were they protectors of the bloodline, but they were also connected to the bloodline in various ways. And I'm not sure if I'm allowed to tell you all that or not. We're here almost at the end of the end, and I'm confident in the Lord's protection. So I think it's very important that people understand how real all of this is. So a little more disclosure, I suppose, won't kill us. So when I was in the Templar groups, I was just there to learn a little bit more about my ancestry and what they do and what they're doing, which ones are real, which ones are just, more like gatherings, because that's what some of them are. Not trying to diss them, just, some of them get together like the Rotary Club or, the Water Buffalo Club, Pretty Flintstone. Just kidding, sorry. Some are very real, though, and most of the ones that are very real are very hidden. The direct order to Christ is very hidden and very long-standing and very real. They remain hidden even to us during this time, but we know that they exist. And I'm not going to go into detail about how I know this because I do not want to create any security risks at all. To anyone, but I still have a lot of faith in their abilities. I've seen some pretty amazing things over the years. So when I was searching, the person that somehow I had asked a question about where the other Templars are in the world, because I was learning about various locations, and at that time I did not know that they had locations literally all over the world. But a member had responded to me and said that Christ had returned and that I should check the information out. So they gave me a link to the International Congregation of Lord Rael on Facebook, and then the rael.org website where there are additional evidences. People don't realize that the evidences are quite deep, broad, and detailed. It takes more than a few minutes of review to see it all. So it's not just one stop where you get all the information, it's several stops. There's also Torah codes to review, witness testimonies, all kinds of things. So it really is not just a small thing. Now, I had been brought up with, a Christian belief, spirit-filled Christian belief, and then, well, before that it was Lutheran, and, which reminded me a lot of Catholicism. Sorry, it's not quite coming out. Anyway, not exact, but, it was similar to me in that they had like certain things that they do, before each service. And well, anyway, I'm kind of losing sight here, but how we went into Christianity, I don't remember because I was younger, and I just remember we had a lot of, outside of the going from the Lutheran church, I learned a lot about the Lord and the Bible. It became part of my life. I read the Bible day and night, every night. Read the Bible from the front to the end. I didn't necessarily understand it all because I was a child, but I understood that the Spirit of the Lord was like nobody else on this earth. And he felt very familiar. So, especially his good works. And I suppose now that I compare myself to other children, I'm not like the others. I was not like the others where, they were, fascinated with other things. And I was fascinated with adventure and playing outside like other children and riding my bike and playing with Barbies or whatever. But I also, loved the Lord and, would draw pictures of him. And I just, I really wanted the Holy Spirit to enter me so that I could live like him and walk like him. And I just admired him tremendously, but I didn't realize that was odd for other children. I kind of learned that the hard way, when I would go to school and try to talk about him, and it, of course, I didn't fit into that piece of the puzzle with schoolmates. So yeah, I learned early on that I was a little different in the thinking, and so it was easier for me to see and recognize the Lord than other people because you get conditioned, at an early age of whether you're a believer or not. The influences of our world and, the influence that our parents have on us are tremendous. So whether they believed, so stringently, that it turned you off and you never went in the pathway of religion, or they didn't believe at all, so you didn't even think to look, to God or his son. Everybody has all these different pathways and lives, and there's a great purpose behind it all. But it also has a major influence on how you see things, how things are perceived. So it was a little easier for me because for some reason I was connected early on, and my parents, thank God, taught me about God early on and the Lord, whether it was through, a conservative way or a more spirit-filled way, which is why I learned, about both sides early on. And so anyway, back to the temple, the guy who told me that the Lord was back on the earth. So I went and checked out the congregation. I lectured to him a little bit, like a lot of Christians lecture to me. They say, hey, false Christ, you got to watch out. You don't want to be deceived. And I'm like, I was like, I'm sorry, I used to be one of you, so I know I know what you're thinking already, and I get it. I did the same thing, but I spent like 4 months investigating before I fully surrendered. I really investigated hardcore. I saw the teaching about adultery and what it really means and what it's really about. And I was very concerned about it. I was very inquisitive about it because I was like, wait a minute, I recognize the bloodlines because I've been working on, reviewing our ancestry, and I got to see from my own eyes, the bloodline and who's connected to it, cousins, uncles, whatever, in the direct line. And it was quite mixed over time. And what the masses don't realize is there was a lot of royalty involved. And, everybody knows royalty back in that time, they would, marry off their daughters or what have you, to make peace with other countries and to form stronger alliances. So as a result, over time, you're coming from a mixed bloodline. very mixed. Even the line of Prophet Muhammad started mixing around the 1500s, starting in Seville, Spain. And the Queen of England disclosed this herself about a year or two ago. I knew about it before then, but of course nobody would believe somebody like me. They would believe somebody like her. So all you have to do is just check out, old headlines, and you'll see it yourself. I believe they even showed the bloodline itself, and so they mix. And nobody wants to believe that they mix, but it does happen over time, over the centuries. So I was quite confused about the adultery education teaching, and I remember I kind of rattled cages about it, because I was like, wait a minute, the bloodline's not even pure anymore. How can we be accountable? And that's what they did back then. And so I kind of ranted. I gave them a hard time. But the Lord heard, I think the Lord heard me out through the imperial regent. And, what is the past is the past, but we are in the present. And so we should be mindful to, your bloodline. And stay within your bloodline as much as possible. There are reasons for that, a lot of good reasons, and it has nothing to do with racism at all. But that's just another story, okay? It's to actually protect and preserve, and for the well-being and happiness of all, not just one race. But that's when I begun to, like, wow, okay, so he heard me out. Maybe I should hear him out and learn some more. So I learned some more. I listened to all the videos. Like I said, it took me some time for it to really click, because I'm just like I was just like other humans, where I was like, wow, that accent. Why does he have that accent? How did he get that accent? And I was just very investigative. I was very, there's something to this. And I stopped myself, and it was like the Spirit was talking to me and said, listen, what is he doing? Watch what he's doing. Listen to what he's saying, not how he's saying it, not how he sounds. And the Spirit was teaching me, the fruit of his works. Pay attention to the fruit of his works. And what is he doing in the world right now? Is he like Claude Rael Vahorlin, the UFO cult leader, who used to show up in the media quite a bit? And he has a different methodology in everything. A lot of people mix them up, by the way. Claude Rael and Lord Rael. The other one is like a French ex, I think he was into car racing or something. I don't know. It was really strange. Anyway, Torah codes were done on him to show the difference between the two. That, Claude Rael is a hoaxer and Lord Rael is not. So I did all kinds of investigating, trust me, because I wanted to make sure I was giving my heart and my service to the right one. And that's when I began to like, wow, Satan is really messing with my head. He's trying to tell me, oh, this is kind of weird, that's kind of weird, but it was all the things that had to do with the superficialities of this world, things that we were taught not to look for. We were not taught to look for how long his hair is, how short his hair is, his eye color. None of those aesthetics were brought up, but yet we as humans, human behavior, tend to be driven to respond to those things. And so it really gets in the way of our ability to see, and we are meant to see, and we're meant to hear. And if you're really seeking him with all your heart, mind, and soul, really seeking him, then you see the fruit of his works. And so that's what I began seeing after those few months. And then I started listening, and then I started seeing, and then I started realizing he is not like the others. He's the real deal. And his teachings, they weren't about, come in here and form a little cult village with us and free love and, may I make babies with all of the women. It was nothing like that. He's quite protective of people and children. And people tend to take what he teaches and twists it and warps it so they cannot receive the teaching or the knowledge and use it as wisely as they could have up to this point, because people fear what they do not understand. And that's what I faced in the beginning, is fear, because for some reason Christians teach, this fear base. And that's something we need to break out of. Christians need to break out of, because it's very true. Hosea 4:6, my people will perish because they rejected knowledge. Well, they still do that. They keep bringing up, that's fear-based. No, you really are going to lose out on salvation if you do not truly seek the Lord or God for what they really are. Okay, there's a consequence rejecting his knowledge. He warns about it. So when people, try to come out with me with this fear thing, I tell them, that's what you're doing. You're the one that's fearful of everything, so you're not willing to learn. You're not willing to see. You're not willing to understand because you're afraid. But you can't even get to his spirit. You can't even get to the fruit of his spirit or seeing it or experiencing it because you reject it out of fear. Out of what you were taught that, they're false messiahs. Yes, but that doesn't mean you reject every single person that's, being reviewed. You really got to learn. And the same thing people got to get is what he went through, and this is what I recognized as well, what he went through over 2,000 plus years ago is the same thing that he went through in this life when he joined the Son of Man, incarnation, like he did in his past life as Yeshua. He was framed, he was detained illegally, and he was not even given a fair trial. Did all those things happen in this life? Yes. And people come at me like I didn't already know about these things, and I do. I know about it. I know the truth. And people are swayed by the mainstream. People want to be swayed by leaders that are deceivers. For example, Chicago, the city of Chicago. Everybody knows how corrupt it is. The police are corrupt. The government's corrupt. The people are corrupt. And they all feed off of each other like a bunch of parasites. They have the highest crime rate. It's there for a reason. And he was the one who actually dared to try to make it better, just like he made it better 2,000 plus years ago. And the leaders caught on to that. They didn't like it. So everything I was comparing that life to this life was almost identical. And I was like, wow, we have been deceived for centuries. People calling him Jesus is the equivalent, not Yeshua, but Yeshu. If you really study history, you find out there's not even a letter J in the Hebrew alphabet from 2,000 plus years ago. It didn't even get introduced until 500 years ago. We were deceived. He was Yeshua, not Yeshu, which is the equivalent to Jesus. So we were, and that the meaning of that name, wow, may his name be forgotten and obliterated. They were mocking the Lord. When they put that little sign up there on the cross, that wasn't his name. That was them mocking him, King of Jews, that they killed. It's a mockery. That's why, if you really want to use his true name, past is Yeshua, and his new name, according to Revelation 19:12, Rael, meaning the Word of God. It's confirmed in the Torah code. There's power in his name. Satan doesn't want you to know about that. That is a secret. A lot of you are wondering, why you had a one-time, healing. Well, yeah, it was probably one time. But you got sick again, or something happened. If there's power in his name, but you got to stay on his path and in his light and his will and way. We tend to get what we want as humans, I received a healing or whatever, and then we fall off the path and we meander, and, we act stupid and fall and stumble. And then we learn more lessons as a result of that. So blessings are removed from us to teach us a lesson. So we have to be accountable, self-accountable. But there was a lot of things that I learned in that 4 months before I fully just said, wow, I'm yours, I'm your servant. I'm so humble and happy to give my life to you. And my old workplace recognized that. I didn't bring it to the workplace, but I was one of those type of people. If I was, something good happened or bad was happening, I would pray out loud to God. I would say, thank you, God, for, doing that, or please help, me to be stronger in this, God. And I would do it out loud. And I know that wasn't what turned them off, because I stayed with that company over 10 years. And it was whenever they were seeing what I said on Facebook about the Lord that, kind of made them, wow, she's a weirdo. And I won't lie, it's not for everybody to see. It's not for everybody to hear. It's not for everybody to understand. But what I find, very interesting is how people try to turn it around, and make us believe in, that the Lord is going to stand on a cumulus cloud and the whole world is going to see him. I'm sorry, even if that was possible, the entire world could not see, even somebody who is 20 feet tall from the other side of the world. It's just not going to happen. It's not logical. So what they need to understand is that God is way ahead of us on everything. He knew about the internet. He knew about the internet being the cloud where people go to see these things, for all eyes that are meant to see. It's not meant for those who, and that does not apply to those who are not seeking him. Okay? Not all eyes will see him if they're not seeking him. But if you're seeking him, you're going to come across that video of his descent over the Dome of the Rock. It's clear and simple. But if you're infiltrated with a bunch of, indoctrination from a religion that, believes only in this tiny little box, God cannot make all things possible except for what my pastor teaches me, that kind of box, then that's what's getting in their way. They have to lean into God's understanding, God's time. And, it's not meant to be easy to get. It opens up to you as you seek him. But what's wrong with the masses in today's society is they're not seeking God or him. I mean, if they had been, then we wouldn't be at a point of World War III, being brought to our doorsteps at any moment. We would not be at the point of, children dying from poisoned, immunizations. Need I go on with the list right now? It's, what's going on. You see it every day. If you don't know what's going on, you need to get on the internet. You need to get on YouTube. You need to get on Google. But they're starting to take this stuff down, folks. They're starting to take things down so you don't know what's going on. They had it hidden for a very long time. They did a good job at hiding it and deceiving the masses. Very good job, so that they could keep you enslaved and in that nice little comfort bubble. Some people are very happy being rich, but they don't realize that they're actually enslaved. Their lives could be much freer and better. God has a plan for each person, and what he had planned for you all before he was crucified over 2,000 years ago was paradise, and mankind rejected that. They all had the ability to stop this from happening, but apparently it was, meant to happen, so that we could learn and evolve. Long story, but those are some of the things. Now, it goes back a little farther for me, okay? Not just the childhood where I was connected, but also because I saw things that that people don't normally see, because I'm always seeking. I'm always looking to the skies too. And when I was younger, I saw a lot of UFOs, and the Bible does teach about it. They refer to it the best way that John could have in his time when he was given visions by God about the armies of heaven, okay, being the white horses. Well, horses were the only means of transport in that time. So naturally, that's the way he could describe them, as, he saw these white, things in the heavens. And okay, they're moving. They must be horses. I can't see that well. That's what they are. They were the armies of heaven. And he saw them. And these armies of heaven are not demons. Who teaches that in the Bible? Nobody. Nobody. It's made up. It's people are fear-mongered into believing that angels are demons, that UFOs are demons. So there's a lot of false doctrine out there blinding people, and they're made to fear everything so they don't know the truth. Now, this is age old. It's been passed down for centuries, so it's very instilled in people, and they get very offended whenever you teach the truth about this. And They want to think that I'm being deceived. I'm not deceived. I realize who's being deceived. If you understand where we come from a minority and compared to the masses that, have primarily the Christian Catholic doctrine, and then you have the Muslim. So it's, let's put this into perspective on who's really deceived. But I saw lots of things like that when I was younger, UFOs, and I knew there was some kind of connection, that there's a world that we don't know about. There's more that we don't know about, and nobody had a handbook to tell us the truth. But there are things that if you look into art history, for example, where somebody was trying to tell the truth or leak the truth. It was in a lot of paintings, a lot of frescoes going, back, way back, and you could see UFOs like right there at the point of crucifixion, right there at the point of the Lord's baptism, other religious, biblical events, major events, and it was like, wow, why am I seeing a UFO next to the Madonna, and child? Why is that? They were trying to tell you that there's more to the bloodline. They're trying to tell you what angels really are. They're trying to educate you, giving you signs and glimpses. But instead, man has tried to take the truth and turn it into something to fear, something to be ugly. Yet it's not biblical. It's not there at all. It's just made up. So what we need to do is first, always seek the truth. Pray to God and seek the truth, and you'll start seeing these things like I did. I didn't always go with the mainstream. I was quite different. Like I said, as a child, I was just different. And, I went through the being rejected and being different and outcasted because I wanted to talk about the Lord. I didn't, really want to do much else. I still remember what that was like. It wasn't easy. But it's okay. The past is the past. It makes us stronger for this time. And I hope this message helps you. I'm sure there's more, that I could tell you. For me, it was more personal, okay? And just, me having those experiences and my life path, and then the Lord filling in the rest of the gaps and actually answering questions, because I remember being in church and asking the pastor, why this, why that, why? And I cannot tell you how many times I was told by people of the church and pastors of the past to just pray about it. Whereas with the Lord being returned, he answered everything. And his Imperial Regent Angelus Domini passed down a lot of, clarification so people would understand what happened with all these missing gaps that other people couldn't answer, questions they couldn't answer because they didn't know, yet they were in pulpit positions, leader positions, teaching positions. How did they get in these positions if they could not answer our questions? Our questions are very important. And, here I was able to get the answers. And not only just answers, okay, because I'm not easy. I scrutinize. I pick apart. Logical explanations. And so the whole cloud thing, being on the internet, and man does call it the cloud. Okay, that's not a lie. It's not imagination. It's a reality. And how do I get to see something that's going on in China? The cloud. I just go online and I get to see about that event that took place in China on such and such date, and then I witness it. So it's as simple as that. Maybe too simple, but God knows about our life way ahead of us. He knows the condition of the world way ahead of us. There are no limits with God. So you just got to remember that. He knows best. Trust that. So those are just a few of the things that helped me along in understanding that he was the real deal. Also, behind the scenes to this very day, I know the fruit of his spirit because I see his concerns being handed down. And a false teacher, a false Christ, would not have the same concerns that he has. Would not have the same ethics that he has. What is hidden to the people is far greater. And, I don't know if it can be appreciated by the masses because they've been taught so many semantics on what to expect, when to expect it, how to expect it, that they don't appreciate a real live testimony, a real live witness with personal experience. All I can say is he's not a thief. If anything, you give him money, he gives it right back to you or to somebody in need, and not for himself. And I've seen that infinite times in the past. He's more gracious than people can imagine. I've been healed of so many things. My heart doesn't skip all the time anymore. It's quite sound. I'm off all the prescriptions that America put me on. I don't need them. They had me diagnosed as diabetic, but after they put me on all their medicines, I gained 5 jillion pounds, and I became very, depressed. And now it's like I can still push the limit a little bit with eating bad sometimes, but I don't, gain 5 jillion pounds because I'm not on all these horrible medications that they put me on, which really mess me up. But my asthma has gone away. I actually lived with that for all my life. I didn't know what it was until I was older. And then I had, a lot of diagnosis done. But coming here, taking the Lord's Exodus command, I can breathe again. I don't constantly have to clear my throat to breathe. I don't have asthma attacks. Like I said, I don't have to take heart medication, high blood pressure medication. I don't take the diabetic medication. I need to do some walking and exercise a little bit, but I've learned a lot about how to take care of myself here, and the Lord will give you tips if you seek Him and ask. And some of these things can be handed down. He's handed down a lot to me, and I try to hand it down to other people so that they can receive healing. But it takes a lot of effort on the other person's end too. Life changes sometimes, and I already had to go through all of that. So there's just a lot. You can ask me this question all you want to, because I guarantee I'll have something new to add to it that I didn't think about before, and I'll be more than happy to share. Because if it saves a life or it helps somebody towards gaining salvation, that's what I want for them more than anything. There was one thing that I did tell somebody that is a truism whenever they were wanting to know, they were hesitant about the Lord, is He's not here, okay? He might be, but we don't know. We don't know where He is. And that's the thing, is He tells people to take this exodus, but He's not doing it for Himself. He's not doing it to get a gain. He's doing it to protect you. He's doing it to get you to guide others to salvation and protection, because He knows what's coming. And you guys have already witnessed some of it. And you're seeing it happen around you, but some of you are still just sitting there. And if you really, really, really want to experience His healing, love, and joy, it takes faith. You got to take that leap of faith. The living here is ridiculously cheap, and there's people who come down here who can vouch to you that they spend a couple $100 and get a really decent apartment or house and live comfortably. It's not expensive. I mean, you could take a nice, savings and live a while and learn how to make it multiply, or, rally, to raise donations for, a follower home. I mean, people just, all they have to do is have a little faith, and, God will will raise you to receiving something and a blessing, and so that you can flourish and multiply it and help others in that process. I could drone on for a really, really, really long time, but ask me the question in public all you want to, and I will definitely try to answer you every single time. But he doesn't do it for Himself. If He was doing it for Himself, He would probably be here. And like the false messiahs in the world, He might have His little headquarter and home and all that, and try to convince them to, giving their entire check over, like they have in some of these cults around the world. But he doesn't do that. He's here to do just as exactly as the Bible has taught. He is here to separate the wheat from the chaff, to judge the nations, to judge the hearts of mankind, and guide them as he is foretold in the Bible. Come out of her, Babylon. Not one of these false teachers out there. Not one tell you, come out of her, Babylon. Have you noticed that? It's how you know. It's things like that. It's really basic common sense, actually. It's not even deep investigative. It's just knowing the fruit of His Spirit, discerning, being led by the Holy Spirit. And how you receive that best? Clear your heart. Clear the garbage out. So you just, help me to lean into God's understanding and not my own. Empty whatever is here so that I can receive His truth. Pray on it. Open up to Him. Be amazed at what happens. So I hope this short message helps you today, and I can always add to it later. There's always more. There is more, actually. I'm one of those people that experienced, things like people in the Bible. Not everybody's going to believe. Should I care? I really don't care if they believe or not. When I used to do my work for the Lord, I used to type on the computer, and, I would feel drops of water coming out of thin air while I was inside my own home. Not after a rain. There was no rain. There was no open windows. There was no leaks. Just a couple drops. And I'd look up and I was like, wow, Lord, you're really here. It's like you're here with me right now. You give me signs that you're with me. It was things like that that made me, he'd always give me like this little, hey, you're on the right path. And there was a week, though, where, I finally joined the clergy, but I was not really doing anything because I didn't know what to do. I was like, I'm in the clergy of the, Director of Christ. Wow, that's pretty cool, but I didn't know what to do. And so I was still living my everyday like it was like I had time, and going out with my friends and, spending time in the movies and going out to eat and this, that, and the other, and, enjoying my title. But he began to show me each day for a week straight a different sign. He showed me when we were at outdoor movie theater, before it got dark out, he showed me a UFO that was in the clouds above me, that it came out of the cloud and it showed itself. And then we all waved, me and my friends, I remember that. And we were like, wow, that's strange. And then, went back into the cloud. And then another night, I went out on a date years ago and went out to eat, came out, and I saw this funnel cloud next to the restaurant. And if anybody knows the Lord, he's Lord of the winds, and he's kind of known for stirring up the winds and tornadoes and stuff like that. So I was like, oh, wow, I think I'm messing up. Something's going on here. But there was another day I was at Walmart parking lot, got out of my car, and this man, white hair, he's kind of a shorter guy, thin, and he wore this t-shirt, this brown t-shirt, and it said something about Noah's Ark. Anyway, it had like Noah's Ark and little, I don't know, animals around it. It had something on there, I can't remember, but I just remember, why is he looking down? And he told me, look up in the air. And I was like, okay, well, you're looking down, and you're telling me to look up in the air. This is kind of strange. But I went and I looked up, and that's when I saw it looked like a white tornado. It wasn't like a full tornado, but it was forming. And what I could see going in and out of it was white UFOs. They were going in and out, in and out, in and out, as if they were causing it to happen. And then I look back and I'm like, who's that guy? And, he was long gone by then, but I was like, wow, he just had, I think he worked through somebody to get to me and to see another sign. But it was like that every day for a week straight. He gave me a different sign. I remember I do, and I still do a lot of landscaping type work, or planting and growing and all that. And I was doing some planting, or whatever. Anyway, I pulled out this one plant because it looked like it was suffering. Okay, it looked like it was dying. So I pulled out the root, and it was like infested with bugs, and it looked like it was a little, like, what do you call it, root rot, and it was really bad off. And I was like, oh wow, this is really sad that this happened. But I listened to the Holy Spirit again, and I'm not one of those that like gets audio. It's more like a knowing, and it tells me, don't know why, tells me pull it out, take it to the back of the house, lay it down for a week straight, go back to it later. I said, okay, I'll go back to it. And then after that week, you know, I almost forgot about it, to be honest. But it had sprung 12 new leaves on it. It was not in the ground. Sprung 12 new leaves on it that had already grown quite significantly. And it was a palm plant, and I just remember being completely stunned and thinking, wow, this is symbolic of his 12 disciples, and he just made this grow out of nothing, out of something dead. He just made this thing come back to life. So I immediately took it and I cleansed the ground, blessed it, put it in the ground, and it grew back, you know, into a very large plant. But it was things like that that made me realize that he's real, because he started making things that were not possible in my life. And you know, the people in my workplace at that time were noticing this. They were noticing that I was, you know, following the Lord, and it bothered them. They thought, you know, that I'd lost the plot or something. And you know, I don't know what to say other than they're going to see the light one of these days soon. And yeah, bad things came from it, you know. There's not much religious freedom in the United States or this world anymore. We know this. But there is truth, and we know that God and his Son are of the ultimate truth, and there is nothing that's going to get in the way between me and that. And I advise all of you to follow his pathway, because he'll keep you strong and he'll bless you in it. And anytime you want me to think of any other, you know, recollections, there's a lot of them. It's almost too much, but it's not the kind of thing that people look for nowadays. Like I said, they're looking at semantics. They're looking at monumental prophetic fulfillments, which he has already done, but they're still asleep. The masses are asleep. So this message will reach the seekers and the hearts of true seekers. And, you know, there's a lot of intimate details. There's dreams, there's confirmations, and I can tell you that now is the time to come to him. He already said it, and it's all for the right reasons. I've seen his, I've seen the angelic guardians here. A lot of us have seen their ships, and what they do is they come out to our area at a certain time every night. And I don't know if I should even say this, because, you know, those opposing the Lord in this world, they might, you know, try to ruin it for us. But anyway, you see them coming out, and they turn off their light, and then they kind of cloak the ship, and then, you know, but they stay in the area, and they keep watch over us, keep guard over us. But it's very important that, you know, you stay in the protective zones, and that you're, you know, walking by his will and way, and not doing stupid things. Okay, anybody can, you know, do a stupid thing, and they're not going to be able to save you if you're making bad choices. So you got to follow his path and his directives closely, or you will regret it. Going against him is, like he said in the videos, you know, disobedience is equal to death. Not because he is causing that, but because he's keeping you protected while you're on his path. So it's kind of like somebody who willfully walks into a dark wilderness, and they make a left instead of the right where it's on his illuminated path. If they deviate, then they're opening doors to trouble, spiritual trouble and more trouble. So it's quite literal. You just got to accept and have faith in what he's telling you and prompting you to. So yes, this could turn quite long if I told you everything right here in this video, but just talk to me, connect with me. When I have time, I will respond to you. We're all extremely busy, But I understand how important it is to connect for sometimes, it might be just a few minutes, but I know that few minutes, it might make a big difference. Okay, I get that. We want to spend more time. We're just so busy trying to tell the world about his presence here on earth. The first few years was spent pretty much telling world leaders about his existence. So there's not many leaders that don't already know about this, that don't know about it. The highest of all high, the ones who have, accesses like the Vatican to see, what's happening in space, what's coming from Nibiru. They know about him. They know about Elysium. They know about the throne of God. They're scared. They don't got all the pieces together, and unfortunately mankind is under the influence of the reptilian world, which is Satan's team. So unfortunately mankind is up against a lot, but it's this that's gonna to pull them out of it. It takes this. It takes what is your true will? Does it coincide with God's will? If so, you'll be looking to break those chains and make your way to him. It's as simple as that. All right, I love you all. Love God, love each other. Remember, knowledge is to give. Pass this around so you can save a life. Baja is the exodus point. Go there while there's time. That's why he's prompting you, because they will close the borders whenever they finally do what they're going to do to America. And I'm not saying the Lord's doing it. He's trying to protect you from what they're going to do to you. Love you guys.